What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Halftime with K Bizzy. This week's guest, we got Striker, the editor-in-chief over at HLTV. Awesome time. We talk a lot about how he got started in the CS scene and how he kind of found his way working with PLAYzone, eventually getting picked up by HLTV. It's people like Striker that deserve all the love and all the thanks and all of the praise and everything like that, because I mean, what he and the rest of HLTV does is absolutely incredible, and without them, I mean, the scene would look a lot different when it comes to esports. If you guys are new to the channel, we do episodes every single Friday, or as many as we can anyways, but we haven't missed anything yet this year. And if you wouldn't mind liking the video, if you truly enjoyed today's video, please drop a like. It makes me very happy. I appreciate everybody that shows support that way. I love reading comments. If you want to comment down below and let me know what you think of today's episode, what I could do to improve. I'm always looking to get some feedback to help make the viewing experience as pleasurable as possible. And definitely subscribe if you enjoy the channel as well. We have podcasts with a lot of people in the industry, and a lot of really cool conversations are had on this channel. And there's only 14.3% of people that are subscribed to the channel out of everybody that watches. So again, that really helps me out a lot. It means a lot for everybody that subscribes. But without further ado, we're going to jump into today's video with Striker. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. It's kind of hard not to enjoy this one. We'll catch you on the outro. I got to thank you so much for doing this now. I've been in talks with Note. We're going to have Note on the podcast soon. We got Professor, and now we got you. I mean,
the
this
whole
is
trifecta, man.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. It's awesome. Maybe we'll get Sponge one day, maybe. But yeah, I appreciate your time and everything.
Yeah,
I don't know if
happy to be here.
Awesome. Do you have any questions about how anything kind of goes? Like, no trick questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to go along with it. All good.
All right, so let's talk about the backstory on how you got into playing Counter-Strike. How did you come across Counter-Strike once upon a time?
Right. Well, I feel like the story is about as basic bitch as my nickname, to be honest, because, people ask me about my nickname being Striker, and you're like, do you come from football? I'm like, no, I come from Counter-Strike. That's where that's where it comes from. So that fits with my entire backstory, just because I have the most predictable, like the same sort of a thing that everybody goes through. You have an older brother who has like a friend group that he plays Counter-Strike with. It goes a little bit more complicated than that, because like I played Half-Life with some of my friends when I was around maybe 10, 11 or something like that. And around that similar time, just like my brother's friends group kind of introduced me to, hey, there's this mod to Half-Life Counter-Strike. Have you tried it? And we all went to the same school. Like I went to not really high school, like the way that it works here. It's just you start at 11 if you want to go kind of into like we call it gymnasium, but it's not, it doesn't quite translate the same way. But you started at 11 and you basically go there until the end of high school, which is like 19 here. And like from 11, they were a couple of years ahead of me. But there were PCs in the classrooms and stuff. And so there was even like an open day at this school, where I went there just before I actually started going to this school. I went there for this day where they just show you around the school, like to new people or to people who are interested to come to the school. And obviously, because I knew a couple of friends there already who were going to the school and my friends group and all that stuff, they just like dragged me to this PC room where we just basically spent the entire day or like the entire few hours playing Counter-Strike. Or Half-Life, maybe at the time, it's possible. And so that's basically how I got introduced to it,
That's awesome. And it's classic. It reminds me of when I was in school, we had like, computer lab classes. So you got to go do research projects, and then you're just on the computer looking through the files, and oh shit, there's a copy of Halo 1 for some reason. I'm definitely not doing research anymore. If you put PCs into school, kids are definitely going to be abusing those.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what happened with me as well. And even when I was going to elementary school, we had a PC there, and so we like played, even like with the teacher's permission. We had like Diablo there, or things like that.
Oh,
Diablo
nice.
1 at the time, So
With the
that tells you
teacher's
how old
permission?
Yes, at the time, yeah. It was because it was kind of a new thing at the time, and so to have any sort of games on a PC was fairly rare. back then. This is like early 2000s, so it's still quite early into the whole gaming world. So at the time, yeah, I guess we had very progressive teachers. I don't know.
All right, shout out to them.
Yeah.
So, as it stands right now, you're one of the longest standing members of the HLTV team, which is pretty friggin' awesome. But before we dive into that, I kind of want to shed some light on the whole journalism aspect of your life. Like,
Okay.
journalism isn't typically like, I feel like most people don't go, oh, I want to be a journalist. Like, that's not, I feel like it's not as common as, pretty much anything else. I feel like it's a very niche type of career path to kind of go down. So, what was it that kind of made you like, did you have an inspiration that made you want to become a journalist? Like, were you involved with local sports or a fan of local sports or anything?
No, not particularly. I mean, the way that I got into it was effectively because as I was like entering the esports side of it, and I started playing with a few teams, and I got introduced to this website, which is a local website that still actually works to this day. At the time, I think it was called something else, but now it's called PLAYzone. In the Czech Republic, it still hosts the biggest tournaments in on the local scene, on the Czech and Slovakian scene. Effectively, they've even started doing some international stuff now. But when I was there, and when I was playing some of these tournaments, they were even looking for admins at the time to host tournaments for them, like online cups and things like that, for teams to just sign up to and play as you would anywhere else on any sort of a platform. And this is like around 2010 maybe, so this is even back in 1.6, where I started doing some of this admin stuff, just hosting tournaments, being in charge of some of these cups, with a couple of other people. And over time, I saw that there was kind of an opening in the writing department. I had a little bit of experience with it before from like a super unknown portal, where I was just super interested in like the esports side of it and in the top teams and in the strats. And so I would do some of these strats kind of breakdowns of how these teams play. Um, and after a few years after this happened, this opening came up on PlayZone, where a lot of the old writers left, or a couple of the main old writers left, so to do their main jobs or whatever. At the time they weren't necessarily paid enough to actually make it a living. So at some point they had to leave that, and there was nobody else to pick up Counter Strike for them. Basically, this was a multi-gaming platform, but nobody else really was that interested in Counter Strike out of the people that still wrote for them. And so I just kind of naturally transitioned into that because I was really interested in the top scene and in what the movement and the top teams were, in trying to do some interviews with the local players as well, like just kind of going to some of these local tournaments as I was still playing myself, kind of trying to make it as a semi-pro, at the time. That's effectively just kind of how I fell into it. It was just a very very natural spot that just opened up for me to take, because there was nobody. There was plenty of admins. I didn't necessarily need to stay there, and I knew a lot of the people higher up in PlayZone, and they just suggested this to me. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it.
That's awesome. Sounds like the right place at the right time kind of deal.
Yeah, of course. I've been there for a couple of years, so it's not completely like out of nowhere or anything, or just very random. But yeah, I guess so. I guess that's how it went.
That's awesome. And like, if we were to go and look, like, could we find like some of your old articles from back at
Yeah,
that time?
100%. I
That's
think I think
awesome.
they still exist. I haven't had a chance to go back because the website's changed quite a bit since. But I'm pretty sure there's even a link to like all my articles. This would be in Czech, of course, at the time. But I did do a few interviews in English already. I think Lurpis was like one of my first ones that I got an interview with. Maybe Karn and some of these guys like from back in 1.6, like early or late 1.6 days. So I did a couple of English ones, but mostly Czech.
That's awesome. I'm gonna after we're finished up here, I'm gonna definitely go check that out and see if I can find some stuff. I
I'm
mean,
curious if you will, because yeah, again, this the whole system changed a bit since, but I'm pretty sure it still exists in some way.
that's amazing, man. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I did my research, it said that you joined HLTV as a writer in 2013. I think it
Yeah,
was. Yeah.
early 2013ish. Yeah.
Okay. So, how did you go from PlayZone and then like HLTV is like the place to go for any type of news in any way, shape, or form. And I know it's developed a lot over time. Like this was 13 years ago we're talking about, but as Counter-Strike has evolved, obviously HLTV naturally evolves with it. And how did you get their attention and how did they want to pick you up and add you to their team?
Well, at the time, funnily enough, HLTV wasn't even my first choice, and that wasn't necessarily because I didn't want to be in HLTV. It was just more like there was no clear opportunity for them to be my first choice. Because I remember some like late 2012 when very games were kind of a big thing. Coming over from Source to the early days of CS:GO, and obviously being very competitive next to NIP, they were looking for a writer for their website at the time, and they put up some sort of an application, and I got in touch with them. I got an interview with them. Never got the job. To this day, I don't know why, but never got the job because they didn't end up getting anybody. Maybe that was the problem. They didn't end up having anybody up to snuff, or who knows. But then a couple of months later, I just saw that on HLTV there was this jobs page, and back then it said that they were looking for a writer, and there was might have been a Skype or email next to it, and so I just wrote to this email. This was with to Peter, actually, who people probably know the most as the creator of the top 20, but he was in charge of the news team back then as well. He was doing a lot of the stats stuff for HLTV already back in 2013, and so this was the person I got in touch with over email, and somehow that just got me through to kind of an interview with him. He gave me like a test article to show him what I've got. I already had a really good level of English at the time. I was always kind of strong coming up through high school in English through playing games and all these things. So I was pretty confident that I could do it because I'd been watching, I'd been reading on HLTV for the longest time. And even the way that I went about it in my Czech articles was structuring it in a very similar ways to how HLTV would do it, because they were the ones who kind of led the standards, right, back then, and for esports reporting or anything like that. Counter-Strike specifically, of course. So I think it was kind of a very natural transition for me to go to from Czech to English, because I'd known the website for so well, and the way that they wrote and what they wrote about, kind of through and through. So it was ended up being successful. Yeah.
That's amazing. And at the time when you're transitioning to HLTV, are you like seeing the big picture with Counter-Strike and this is going to run for the long term, it's going to be around for decades to come, or is this just like, okay, this is a job, hopefully I'll have it for a few years and then we'll have to find something else? Like what was your kind of thought process there?
Well, at the time, this wasn't even that well paid. It was just I mean, at the beginning, it wasn't even paid at all. It was just
Oh,
basically an internship type thing. Obviously, me as no experience, I wasn't even looking to get paid. I wasn't getting paid that much in the Czech outlet either. As I said, at the time, this was early days of Counter Strike in terms of modern Counter Strike, where barely any players would get paid, let alone any staff around the entire scene, any managers, any writers, or anything like that. And this is from a Czech scene as well. So that's even a step down in terms of that, right? So in terms of that, I just I never really looked at the big picture at all. It was just I had a passion for the game. I was just curious to start and keep going through my knowledge of English, and it just seemed like a very natural progression for me to try it, whether I can do it in English. And I was never really looking at it as like an opportunity for a full-time job. I didn't even treat it that way at the beginning.
yeah, especially in the early days too. Like, you just watch like the early like Counter-Strike tournaments, like they're not that big. Like they are big,
No,
but like physically, like they're not that big.
they're really
So
not. I mean, look, the first majors took over like 3 days or something like that,
yeah, like
and like now we're 3 weeks, so it's changed quite a bit, and even the quality wasn't really great for a lot of it either,
yeah.
in terms of standards and level of integrity and all these things. It was very different times back then. Yeah.
It's amazing to see how the game has evolved like just so many times in so many different ways, and it's some controversy here and there with the game, but overall it's
Yeah.
flourishing and it's doing really good. And it's really good to
Well,
see.
yeah, that's what happened over the next 2 years for me, right? Because it didn't really take off. Early CS:GO was, yeah, heavily criticized, especially from the 1.6 side of things. I never really had that problem. I even was one of the first players to switch over when CS:GO came around, because just I had a bunch of people from that I kind of knew from Source, even though I never really played the game or followed it. I just had some mutual connections, and so these guys, like, their local tournament actually switched over to CS:GO, but the 1.6 one actually kept going. It's called the Czech Championship. It's still running to this day, really. And at the on the split year in the 2012, we ended the year as with a 1.6 Czech Championship and with a CS:GO Czech Championship, and I
Oh,
actually took part in the CS:GO one because that was like such an early. Yeah, I was one of the first people from 1.6 to switch because I had an opportunity to go over to a different team.
that's amazing, man. I love hearing all this backstory. Like, I feel like you can't find this anywhere. Like, I'm happy we're doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, you'd probably find some of it in Czech. I've done some of these before, but that would be a bit more difficult to dig out, I think.
Yeah. So this might be a bit of a silly question, as you know, this is kind of your whole job is to be on top of everything that happens in this never sleeping scene of Counter Strike.
Right.
Um, I mean, I can't believe the amount of work that all of you guys cover, and like I know that you guys probably have sources that reach out to you or vice versa to help prepare for some of these articles that you're gonna write and
Of course.
everything. But like I said, it's like very rare this industry sleeps like a couple times a year, maybe. Like it's really firing on all cylinders all year round. So I'm wondering like how do you how do you kind of like I'm trying to figure out how to word this. When you're coming up with stories, like how do you figure out what you're gonna do for the week and then how like stuff always just keeps popping up, right? And how do you integrate that in and kind of shuffle around like what's more important, what should we cover this week, leave that for next week kind of thing?
Well, it's never really leaving anything for further unless it's something long term, like we're working on features and things like that that maybe aren't super time sensitive. But it is a news job in the first place, you know. So a lot of it is right now what we're doing today. Rather than this week, you know, a lot of it is tournaments, which is again right now this week. It's never next week that's coming up, which ties into what you were saying. It never really sleeps, especially with how many tournaments there are going on now. So there's not loads of long-term planning involved really in terms of what we cover, what we don't cover. Most of it is just a decision of whether we cover it at all, or whether we don't, because obviously to some degree we have to prioritize. We've done a little bit of a better job at covering a little bit more of the stuff than we would in the past couple of years, just through our shorts kind of section. Um, and some of these things, but that's the main parts, kind of deciding how we cover tournaments, especially if we have people on the ground. We're now deciding whether we're running live posts for these things, which is just effectively, yeah, right now, like on the day as it's happening, like the biggest plays that are happening at the tournament or the best things that are happening on the ground, in terms of interviews, reactions, things like this. Clips from the arena or from the group stage, reactions from the teams, all these things. A lot of it is very free flowing in terms of, yeah, we see something happen, we pick it up. Or sometimes, as you say, somebody reaches out to us. This is happening tomorrow. This is happening later today. Feel free to write about it. A lot of it, yeah, we were fortunate enough that we are in a position where people generally want their news to be on HLTV, and so
Yeah.
they obviously reach out quite often in terms of when something's about to happen. That's from top teams all the way down to kind of like tier 2, tier 3 teams, especially those ones. To be honest, top teams are like, yeah, of course you're going to cover what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're the big shit here, so they're not necessarily the ones that are super motivated, to come early. But tournament organizers and all these things, obviously, whenever something big happens, we're probably the first ones they think of uh, when they want to share some big piece of news that they have coming up. So a lot of it is, yeah, it comes from a position of privilege where my job is a little bit easier thanks to that, and of course we have a lot more people working for the news department now than we did basically ever before, which is another big help. It used to be quite different in that you would kind of be around all the time,
Yeah.
and now we actually have some sort of a shift system. We have some breaks and vacations and things like that. We actually have space for that now, and again, that comes from a position of privilege compared to a lot of other outlets that are out there. Obviously, esports writing isn't the most lucrative job in the world in general, but HLTV is fortunately done well enough that we're able to have it as more or less a normal job.
And although this is like your job, like you still have the passion for Counter Strike. You're still a fan of the game and the esport. How does it feel like when someone reaches out to you personally and they're like, "Oh, this, that, and the third is happening. maybe write an article about like rumors or something like that, and you know what's happening. Like, how does it make you feel knowing that you have like some crazy insider knowledge? Like, is that like that's got to be exciting as hell, right?
I mean, it's very cool. Obviously, like over the years, you get used to it just because yeah, these things come your way kind of sometimes every other week, sometimes a bit more often than that even.
Sure.
But it is still very exciting for me to learn of even potential new moves that never end up happening. Those ones are almost always the most fun because that's it's maybe going to take some time before people realize this could have happened, and things like that. Often, of course, I can't say that this is something I heard or whatever like that, so people get to learn quite quickly. Sometimes I can't, because it's coming straight from teams or whatever it is, so, and they tell me with the understanding that I can't share this news because they're about to announce it, or maybe something went wrong or things like that, so a lot of this stuff, yeah, very, very cool still. Very, very exciting for me to hear, especially when it's a big move, it's like a big player. Like the moment I can think back to 2021, I'm pretty sure, when Device was switching from Astralis to NIP, we learned of it like 5 minutes before it happened or something like that. Like very, very last minute
Oh
that
wow.
we were sure that it was happening. Like I think one of my colleagues heard about it the day before, the night before it happened, and then 5 minutes before it happened, somebody pinged me like, okay, this is about to happen. And like the feelings from that are still as strong as they were ever before, just because this is the huge news, massive
Yeah.
for a player like that to leave an organization after such a long time. So yeah, still brings out all the passion that I have.
It's crazy, and like I couldn't like Device is no, that's no slouch. That's a pretty big name. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine that. And like 5 minutes before it happens too, like that's the adrenaline's got
Yeah.
to be pumping.
Yeah, I remember we even like the way that we reacted to it very quickly was, I think it was only me and Chad who ended up doing a confirmed about it, like literally as like the moment that it was happening, like within 10 minutes or something that the news went live, we went
Dude,
live with a confirmed, because we never really do that where we do something that reactionary, where like some big news comes out and we go live. But for that we did, because it was just such a huge piece of news. So yeah, it was yeah, still remember.
for sure. I actually got my first little taste of that yesterday with the whole
Okay.
Grim announcement.
Okay.
Drake, one of your junior writers, he had posted the article about Grim officially joining NRG. But I had actually last Friday did a podcast with Daps, but it
Right.
was the week before that because I had Maui Snake on, and then he came on. Daps came on last week, but me and him recorded 2 weeks prior. So I think February 14th was when they announced that Grim was like leaving. He was benched on Passion and rumored to be going back to NRG. Well, the day after that is when I did the podcast with Grim. So I
Okay.
saw on Thursday, I saw like someone tweeted something. It was getting some attention, something about Grim going back to NRG again, another rumor. So I just posted my clip, and Drake ended up putting it in the HLTV article. I was like, damn, that's crazy. That felt really cool,
Must
man.
have been cool. Must have been cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine you guys get to do that like frequently. Like that's got to be wicked. Really cool
Yeah. It's
stuff.
it's it is really cool, and it just helps keep your interest going, keep your motivation going, just because there's this job is a lot about, like, a lot of different ways that or a lot of different things that you do, especially from my position, because I'm editor in chief, but I also write still. I'm doing the podcast, I do a lot of the award stuff, and like it just keeps me very engaged from a lot of different perspectives, so it's yeah, very, very cool.
For sure. And that's what I wanted to swing into next is eventually in 2021 you would become the editor in chief. Um can you kind of break down the difference? Like what is the difference between editor in chief and like being a writer?
Well, the difference is basically managerial. It's
Okay.
I manage schedules. I manage our writers. I decide how we cover tournaments. I decide who to send where for tournaments. All these things that kind of are a lot of backroom stuff. Some of it is also a little bit more fun, just coming up with new features for the writing for the news side of HLTV. Coming up with new ways to cover things. Trying to keep up with the trends of what people actually want to see. Things like this. That are a bit more creative in that sense, where you just get to kind of experiment with things, how people react to different things, and all these things. So that is yeah, big difference, because again, editor in chief and writer, two different things. Really, I still do both because I'd be bored. I think if I only did the managerial stuff. I do write a little bit less than I did before, just because my time is taken up in a lot of different ways. But without it, I think I wouldn't really feel complete. But yeah, two very separate things.
And how did you feel when you got approached to take this new, position in the company? Like, was this completely out of nowhere? Like, these are big shoes to fill, right?
Not completely out of nowhere, just because I'd been in the company for a long time, and it was always kind of made clear to me in the years leading up to that point that if ever that opened up, it will always be mine, which was very reassuring in terms of the leadership looking to me as kind of the future of the news team if there was ever a space to move in that direction, right? And so like when it came, it was more kind of surprised that the old editor in chief was leaving, because there was somebody that I was. This is he's since back, of course. I hired him back, and now he's my writer, and I'm his editor in chief. So there's life's funny that way sometimes. But yeah, this is Luis Mira, who's obviously been with HLTV longer than I have in total for sure, because he started somewhere in the mid 2000s, doing all this stuff, and he's still kept at it for the last 2 decades or so, very close to that, I think. So I just learned that he was leaving, which came kind of as a surprise, just because HLTV had been doing really well, and there was no reason for anybody to leave, for like bad reasons or anything like that. But he just had an opportunity to do more games in Deserto at the time. He was leaving too, and so that's how it opened up. And like once our leadership, got wind of that, or I guess Luis told them, they got in touch with me and Prof, who was promoted at the same time. Because we'd been the two, I guess. Not necessarily longest standing, but well, I guess we were longest standing at the time, members of the news team, and it just made sense for the two of us to take over the mantle effectively and take the news team forward.
For sure. And, you guys do a lot of cool things, and the HLTV Awards is one that stands out. I know people have their little things they like to say about the top 20 and whatever, but when it comes to the awards ceremony as a whole, like, I think when you really just zoom out and take a step back to see, like, so many people in the industry in one place, celebrating each other, and there's a place for award ceremonies and stuff for this game that we all love. Like, it's really just an amazing thing. Um, but I know for the
For me too,
HLT,
man. I mean, it is crazy to me still that just to
yeah,
see, we just had 1,000 people, like our biggest audience we ever had this year at the awards, and that's insane to me. Like to think that this is possible these days.
yeah, like you can't just, 90% of the time you can't just say, "Oh, hey, everybody in all these people from teams and all these, broadcast talents and everybody just come on over and let's go to this, big venue and celebrate." People are like, "What the hell?" But you guys make it happen, and I think that's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, look, this a lot of credit goes to Prof there, because he's the main guy behind the awards, and some of the team around him. Bogdan is kind of his right hand man who do a lot of the organizational stuff. Deciding how it all looks, how what the show is like. A lot of these things that takes so much effort and so much planning and so much kind of time invested into it that I'd go crazy from that. So I'm
Yeah.
not a big manager person, even though I am in a managerial position. Like it's not necessarily my forte. So that's still incredible to me. I realistically I have very little to do with it. Yes, I decide some of the awards, but the actual show of it, that's actually goes so far outside of me that is just for me I'm the same as anybody who would come to watch it. It's just it's incredible how much has grown over time as well.
For sure. And like, how does it make you feel to be a part of, even though you might not be like Professor does a lot of the, organizing and planning and everything like that. He was telling me about it, but like, you're still a part of it too. HLTV, if you work for HLTV, I think that it's fair to say that you're a part of it. Like, how does it make you feel to be contributing to things all year long around the scene, and then bang, the HLTV Awards come around in January, and then, you get to see everybody and, catch up with people, reconnect. You know, how does that feel?
Yeah, you're talking about catching up with people. Like every awards, it's like you stop for 10 seconds to like grab a bite or something. Like whenever you're not talking to somebody for like 5 seconds, you're about to talk to somebody for the next 30 minutes or whatever it is, because there's just people coming and coming and coming, and like everybody wants to say hi, and like you just see so many people that you haven't seen maybe for even for throughout the year too much, because it's a lot of like backroom people and behind the scenes people, not just the players, not just the teams themselves, and the talent that you kind of see fairly regularly, but still a lot of people around that too. And that part of it is incredible, just to get to connect with so many people, just through through what we do. Like that's still, yeah, that's kind of unfathomable to me even today, now that we've done it for 4 years running, or something like that. Yeah, contributing to it, it's just like, in the end, a lot of it is just what we do throughout the year, and then at the end of it we just put it all together, and that's that, so the it's a lot of commitment throughout the year to do it right, for it to come out well at the end of the year. And that's not just the top 20, that's everything around it as well. It's a lot of the other awards, the team awards, and all these things that we obviously put out. A lot of it is work throughout the year that we kind of put behind, so that the end product is as accurate as we want it to be, and or as it could be. So it's obviously a lot of work that goes into it behind the scenes, into deciding it all. And again, the organization part of it all is, that's fortunately for me, that's a little bit to the side.
For sure. And I remember it was toward the end of last year, but you guys did a podcast talking about previous HLTV Awards ceremonies and stuff, and Professor was mentioning how he didn't really like the fact of like certain teams would have, like, for argument's sake, 3 players show up instead of the 5 and the coach.
Uh,
And he thought that it was like kind of rude or like disrespectful to not have the whole team come out, but they could be on like vacation or, doing holidays with their family and stuff. Like, what is your take on that? Like, what would it mean for you guys that are throwing this whole ceremony? What would it mean to have like an entire team come rather than just like maybe 1 or 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's always the topic, right? Because if the teams aren't about to win anything, there it's not as easy to convince them to come. Just for the show of it, just for them to see everybody else get awards and not them. Like, I
Yeah.
understand that. I understand that perspective as well. It's the same thing with any award ceremony. It's always going to be difficult if you don't actually have something to give them. But it's still a lot of people come regardless. We saw Falcons last year, for example, or like this January, we had Monesi and Nico come over, even though neither of them ended up getting any awards. I'm pretty sure. I could be. I feel like I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they didn't. Um, and so we still do get a bunch of people that don't necessarily aren't really up for anything, or are just there for the enjoyment of it, and maybe to see people and just to be part of the whole show. So it's always nice. The more players, the more of the actual people that do the competing is obviously going to make the show bigger. It's going to make the show more important, more interesting. To see all these personalities in one place, to see everybody suited up. The more people you see like that when you've never really seen it before. Now, of course, like now that we've done it for a few years running, we've seen about 50% of the top scene in suits, which is nice.
Yeah.
That's also another angle to it.
It's like the
Just to
Counter-Strike
see them,
Grammys.
yeah, exactly. Just to see them in a different environment, and different vibes. It's always that's kind of the heartwarming part about it, that everybody's there just to enjoy themselves. It's no longer the competing. Yes, of course, some of them may be wondering, am I going to win this award? Am I not going to win this award? But a lot of the time, it is relatively predictable, whether they're going to win or not, and they still come anyway, which is always great. So I can only be happy about that.
Amazing. So 2026, we got, good couple weeks, or sorry, good couple months into the season so far. Paravision, they've been very exciting. I'm curious to hear about what you think, like prediction wise. What are you most excited for 2026, or what predictions do you have?
Ooh,
Could
Man,
be
it's if you'd asked me a couple of days ago, maybe I would have gone big on 100 Thieves or something. But now it feels
ah
like it's just gonna be yeah, it's just gonna be a kind of predictable, just because they've obviously done really well at Dracula and finally got the team going properly. I saw when they put that team together, and obviously a lot of question marks in terms of some of the new guys coming in. Also, Rain, becoming IGL, Glaive becoming a coach. As much as these are people that are super experienced and obviously know how to play Counter Strike, how to win in Counter Strike, that's not always the same thing when you're doing from a different role. So, but but I still saw a lot of that potential, because these guys, the young guys that are there, we put in our prospects list. These were guys that we've had our eyes on for a while. I watched Agil, kind of come from a guy that I didn't understand why he went to Saw, why Saw even picked him up, like what was exciting about him, to suddenly halfway through the last season become a star for the team from roles that don't necessarily warrant it. So like Poi was the same thing. Like, it was
yeah,
always very clear that he was destined for bigger things. At least whether he's destined for really big things, we're still gonna see. But I think I just thought that they took a really good approach in terms of how they built the team. Just enough experience to get them started, but not too much that it's gonna be what has been. Because obviously, if you put another, yeah, I'm gonna call them a has-been, just because they've obviously been around for a long time. But another like Rain Device type player, who are obviously past their zenith at this point, it would obviously be tougher for them to have the firepower that you need these days to compete at the top. But they have done really well to pick out the right youngsters that seem to fit inside the team, that seem to have the right potential, and it just felt like they were going to do at least well enough. I thought that they were going to come into the top 10 at some point, maybe in the second half of the year. For them to make the major, probably not going to happen even after all this. I know people are very big on that now that they've made this massive climb, but it's still very difficult. It's still very difficult for them to do that. So don't really have that big of an expectation for the rest of this season. But I think second half of the season they're going to do well.
for sure. Like
Yeah.
Poi, he was standout to me yesterday. Like
Oh
that
yeah.
guy was on fire.
He was
Really
great.
entertaining.
Same thing with Agil. He's been doing really well. Syra has these moments where he's sometimes up and down, but he also is quite explosive in moments, and it's just, you can see that these guys have what it takes to compete at the top. Yeah, whether they're going to win trophies or not, that's always another story. Because it takes another step from just some potential, for you to reach that high. But definitely these guys are competitive.
For sure. And this was only their first LAN, and look at what they did, Give them
Yeah,
time, let them build that chemistry. Who knows what'll happen? Like they're already
yeah,
at
it could be
what,
very cool.
number 31 or number 32 or something like that?
I
Like
think
they
something like that. They were like 34 after after they won the consolidation final. I don't know where they ended up, but something like that. Close to top 30 within 10 days of them being in the ranking, even,
it's
or something like
crazy.
that. So that's look, it's how the ranking works. Like, if you really start off with a good run, like from the beginning, and don't kind of flood your history with a lot of matches online and all these things that don't really matter, it just makes your life so much harder down the line. If you do have one of these runs, if you already have history that says you're not a top 30 team, and then suddenly you have one tournament that says, yeah, you're probably better than a top 30 team, the ranking doesn't necessarily reward that so fast. It really takes a long time. But if you just, yeah, um, get from the ground so fast, it just really is good at rewarding you for that, and they've done well at understanding that as well. I mean, Messiozo is probably the best person to get if you want
Yeah.
somebody who understands the whole system and how to do it. And that's why also, like, he was a big part of why I felt like this team could do it, just because they understand how to do it. They understand how to prioritize properly, when to peak properly, like when to pick and choose their fights, and not just attend everything as a lot of other teams would, because they just want as big as many opportunities as they can to enter the circuit. It's not always about that, and you have to be smart about how you approach these things. And Messiozo has been big parts in that, in setting up the system around it, from behind the scenes. So that's why I was impressed with how 100 Thieves put it together.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Last question I got for you. What about some hot takes to start some conversations, maybe about TOs, about teams or players? You have
Ooh,
anything that could kind of get some people talking?
look, there's always I'll tell you something that I haven't necessarily talked about yet this year, but it will become a topic very quickly. I think we saw Blast announce their circuit for next year. We will see the other two TOs announce their circuit next year, and I think we're in for a competitive year between all three. I think there's a very good chance that PGL come up into kind of that same territory as the other two, where obviously they've been trying to get. We will see whether that's going to happen, but that's my prediction for next year, where I think teams will have to play the game a little bit more than they have so far.
Yeah, I mean, their Blast really kind of set a precedent yesterday, and I'm kind of curious to see what other tournament organizers are going to do to follow suit,
Yeah.
or maybe try to one up them. Even who knows?
Yeah, of course. I mean, ESL, I think we kind of know what to expect just because they've run the kind of more or less the same thing for the past couple of years. And I would be kind of surprised if they changed a lot because I think they're still viewed by all the teams as the best TO and kind of as a whole package in
For
terms of
sure.
what they have to offer across their tournaments. The money that they have put up for the whole year in the last couple of years was I think even a little bit more than what Blaz does now for will do next year. So I think they don't necessarily have a big reason to one up Blaz because they already have, assuming they keep the same sort of an investment that they have so far. We don't know. I mean, we will probably hear about it pretty soon, just because their first tournaments for next year also, the deadline that they have to announce all these things for their first tournament for next year is also coming up very quickly in the next couple of weeks. PGL, the same thing. So next couple of weeks, going to be a couple of more big news that will hopefully tell us a little bit more about what the future looks like from next year. But yeah, my prediction is that I think we will have kind of parity between the top three TOs.
Alrighty, that's interesting. That was the last question I have for you. Again, thank you so much for your time. For the last part of the podcast, I just do the same thing every time. I just like to shine over the spotlight to the guest, and if there's anybody you want to shout out, anyone you want to thank, any type of advice or words or anything you want to say to end the podcast, the floor is yours.
All right. So since this is about my coming up, and obviously a lot of it is about people who helped me come up, I just want to thank Martin, CEO of HLTV, who, as I told you before, he was the one who kind of always reassured me that I had a place, in the leadership if that ever came up, and that's been for several years before it even really happened. He always believed in me. He always pushed me forward and motivated me to and reassured me that I had what it takes to take over the job when the time came. Because I never really. It's not that I didn't trust myself. It's just it was a job that didn't necessarily suit my strengths the best at the time, and I had to learn a lot about it. But he somehow always saw that I could handle it, and that's I owe massive thanks to him for how much I've grown in this company, how much how we've furthered the news department in this company. Because he gave us the reins 5 years ago to kind of revamp the news team and get new people and all these things, and I got quite a bit more budget from him than the previous setup to make all that happen. And without that, the news team would have looked very different today. So he's been a big supporter of mine throughout my entire career in HLTV. Really, a few years into it, when I first kind of got to know him a little bit more in detail. Similarly, to say about Peter, who's now kind of taken a bit more of a backseat in the company. This is the game will restart in 1 second for people who know his nickname. He as the creator of the top 20 and all these things, he was also the one that I learned from early in my HLTV, in the start of HLTV, and he was always the guide for me to that helped me understand the scene and kind of look at it from an objective standpoint, and always try to look at the data, not always go about my feelings and all that about teams and whatever is happening and all that stuff. He's always been big on data, and he's taught me very well in that aspect. And obviously, now I've taken over with Harry the top 20 from him effectively from this year, and so he deserves a massive thanks, and even just thanks for what he's done for Counter Strike in general, because obviously his legacy is the top 20, but people have no idea how much more he's done for teams, helping teams get new players, things like that. He's always been a guy who's looked at the next prospects, and just letting people know, like, okay, this guy's kind of cool. Maybe you could give him a shot on your team. A lot of moves throughout the years probably happened thanks to his input to some of these teams, that he had good connections with, and people have no idea, don't even have any idea about that, because he's never liked the spotlights, but I think he's always deserved it. And so yeah, huge thanks to him as well.
Alrighty, guys, that will do it for today's episode. Really, really awesome. I can't thank Striker enough, and I commend him and the rest of HLTV. Like I said in the intro, they deserve all the praise in the world. Thank you to all of HLTV for doing what you do for the esports industry surrounding Counter-Strike. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, you're going to enjoy next week's episode with Note, who is also an HLTV staff member, really experienced journalist, and it's going to be a cool conversation. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you haven't, and comment down below and let me know what you thought of today's episode. But that's going to be it for today. We will catch you guys on the next one. Till next time, everybody.